Our guest this episode is Rob Dwyer. He is VP of Customer Engagement, and he's known for empowering small and medium businesses to deliver exceptional customer service. His company, Happy To, develops tools that enable contact centers to create standout customer experiences. His passion lies in customer experience, and he explores these topics through his podcast, Next in Queue, where he interviews experts and practitioners worldwide, ranging from CEOs to frontline workers. He's also a featured contributor at ICMI. That's a leading organization in contact center industry, where he's published numerous articles on various topics. He's here to share his insights on customer experience, leadership, and technology. Please welcome to the podcast, Rob Dwyer. Welcome to the Engaging Personalities Podcast. I'm Anders Belanger, founder and CEO of Engagify, where we're on a mission to rehumanize business through engagement. We believe that we can all be more successful if we can command attention and deepen connection. So stick around to the end of the show and we'll reveal how you can be our next guest on a future episode. So let's get ready to engage.
Thanks for all of that, Anders. I should just record. I'm going to grab that recording and just play that every time I meet someone new.
Just have that like an audio business card. You just like, here, listen to this. This is what I'm about.
Yeah, perfect.
Well, you know what? Intros are important because they kind of pre-frame, the experience or what people can garner or learn from you. So, just because I do a bit of emceeing, whether it's at trade shows, I do it also, at other events, and it makes a huge difference, right? How we frame what's to come. So, I like getting a good intro, going here. So let's. I'm losing momentum by talking about the intro. Let's just get into it. So let's talk about your podcast, because I love having podcasters as guests because you kind of know the deal, right? And it's easy to do that way. So you have a podcast called Next in Queue. Tell us a little bit about that, because I think there's going to be some similarities and some synergies that way.
Yeah. So I am in the 4th season. It's a weekly show. And I started it just as a way to get content for LinkedIn. I was really focused on how do I generate useful content for LinkedIn. And I thought, well, I should talk to other people instead of just me saying things that I think are important. Like, let me actually talk to people. And I thought a podcast was the best way to do that. And it has given me an opportunity not only to have interesting conversations with interesting people, but it's a way for me to learn about things that I want to learn about from people that know way more about any given subject than I do. So if I find that there's a topic that I think is interesting, that I want to know more about, and I think the audience that tunes into Next in Queue will want to know more about, I just approach really great guests and say, hey, I'd kind of like to talk about this. Can we do something? And I have found that it's almost never the case that you invite someone onto the podcast and they go, nah, I don't want to do that.
Right. We like to talk about ourselves, right? Like we like to talk about what we like, so.
Yeah. It's also just been a great way to, as we've been in a startup, Happy To is a startup we launched in 2020, just being able, for me, the first time being in a startup, to learn things about working in a startup from other people that have done it before, because it's very foreign to me. And so it's allowed me to learn all kinds of things along my journey before I had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, and that idea of none of us is as smart as all of us, right? Let's tap into, in my experience having guests on the podcast is I meet a lot of people who I wouldn't have met, have some great conversations, I end up buying a lot of books of people who've written books, but it's just it is expanding what I know and giving me a much better view of kind of my area of interest. So and with that, you talked about launching Happy To in 2020. That must have been bit of a challenge, perhaps. Tell us about your
Yeah.
company. Tell us how it got started, and what does Happy to actually do?
Yeah. Well, so Happy to is actually a sister company that spun out of the other company that I work for. So Customer Direct is a US based outsourcer. So think contact center, call center. That's what most people think of. We provide customer service, sales support, tech support for all kinds of different brands that you've probably heard of. And in 2020, we had been working on some software that we'd been using internally for many, many years and kind of rebuilding it from scratch. And we decided that not only was it useful for us internally, that we had had so many partners ask about them using it in their own companies with their own people, that we thought, hey, let's just go to market with this. And so that's kind of what we did. It was a weird time because this was late 2020. Luckily, our contact center had gone to a work from home model back in 2018. So most of our agents were already work from home. We definitely did have, a lot of people that still had to make arrangements in early 2020, but it wasn't terribly disruptive for us as a business model. And then we got into speech analytics. And this was a piece that I was really interested in. So in the contact center, my history has been leading training and quality. And quality in particular has been this piece that, Anders, you've probably made a phone call to a company and heard the call recording disclosure that says, your call is being recorded for quality and training purposes. Nobody was ever listening to those calls. Like, it was so rare that anyone actually listened to your phone call because that was a person that you had to pay. And speech analytics is really this opportunity where we can take this burgeoning AI. I don't want to call it a revolution. People think that it's very much in the public eye now, but you can take a lot of the gains that we've gotten out of AI just in the last few years and apply them to this gap that we've had in contact centers for a long time. And so that's what we're doing. We're really automating the quality assurance process, which is really just looking at a phone call or a chat and understanding, what did the agent do well? What could they have done even better going forward? And providing a holistic view with a sample size that's not just cherry picked call or two. And we help small and medium businesses all over the country with understanding what their customers are saying, what their agents are saying, and how they can provide better experiences.
It's so fascinating because you're able to learn off of, like you said, more than just one call, and you're looking at the words that are said. Now, I'm curious, do you also analyze how they are said?
That's a great question. I will tell you, we're experimenting with that.
Okay.
To date, we have primarily just relied on the transcript. So the first step is getting a transcript. I will tell you, part of the reasoning for that is both technological. The other is also, are we comparing apples to apples? So when you think about a chat, right, there's no voice, there's no tone. You only get the words that are typed. And so to compare appropriately kind of the data that you get from a chat with the data that you get from a call, we've avoided doing what's called tonal analysis, which is where you're actually analyzing tone and volume and pitch on the call recording. But there are some advantages when you use tonal analysis to kind of get some other cues. Some of that may be involved in even just editing the actual audio so that you can eliminate some background noise, get a cleaner transcript so that you better understand it. But also, to your point, sometimes understanding things like sarcasm. We all have experienced this somewhere on the internet where someone was being sarcastic. They didn't put the /s, you didn't get it, and then they go, I was being sarcastic. you hear that in someone's voice, it's harder to detect when you only have the text. And so that's a really good use case for it.
Yeah. I think too, in terms of empathy, in terms of
Hmm.
warmth,
Hmm.
when you want, especially on the customer service, you got someone frustrated, if you're able to absorb their frustrations and just listen, eventually they kind of like run out of steam and
Yeah.
you can do something about it, right? But they're sometimes in that state that you can't, nothing's going to make them happy, right? So I just find all of that very fascinating. But again, the words we say are so critical, and just how there can be, you can be very direct in how you say something, but you can soften it with certain phrases and different things that, again, patterns of what's worked in the past and what's, what is recommended, I can really see that can be very, very effective. Now, we're talking about, like you said, customer service, sales as well, right? As far
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
listening to that. What are kind of the, what are the results companies are getting from this type of, improvements?
I think it depends on who you talk to and what their role is, what they'll say the results are that they're getting, because we do more than just automate quality, right? So, one of the things that we look at are what are customer intents? Why are people calling or
Mhm.
chatting in? And as a business leader, that can be really useful to me to understand what's changed, what's driving a difference, or what are people calling about. We also do sentiment analysis. So, just understanding how sentiment of a customer is different based off of different intents, right? Are people really upset when they're calling about a particular thing? That helps me understand, hey, is there potentially a process that's broken here? Is there something that I can resolve in another department that will stop a volume from coming in? Those two things are really critical for business leaders when they have a large organization and maybe they don't know that something's broken. So we've had companies that were able to quickly identify and repair a process that was broken. I'll give you one of my favorite examples is a company that sends out an automated email every time you place an order. And there's a little button in that email that says track my order. And at one point, people were pressing that button and it just didn't go anywhere. The tracking had disappeared, which, as I understand it, is your specialty. But that was not the magic that they intended in their email. They were not looking for the tracking to disappear, but they were able to understand what was happening really, really quickly and follow up with the department that handled that so they could resolve that issue. And that's an example of when you're in a contact center and you get this huge increase of volume that you don't anticipate. Not only is it stressful on the agents, but all the other people who are calling in about the kind of normal things that they would typically call in now have to wait longer in queue
Right.
because we're getting unexpected volume. And those that are involved in workforce management plan exactly how many people I need to handle the expected call volume. And when that volume doesn't go to plan, it really gums up the works. And as a customer calling in, hear that my expected wait time is 22 minutes, like I am not in a good mood by the
Yeah.
time I get to that agent.
Yeah, for sure. Like I can see how, you don't want to over more frustrate people who are already frustrated. Like that's not good. So that resource
No.
planning is critical. From the AI analyzing, the interactions, were there any surprises, Rob? Because I mean, I think we know from what we know about communication, but were there any things that once you dig in, you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming? Was there anything that came up?
I think what's most interesting, and this is really kind of the result of generative AI that I think all of us have become well aware of, even if we weren't aware of AI before, is the ability to easily provide feedback to agents about how they do certain things on a call. Like generative AI in a chatbot can get you into all kinds of trouble, potentially, because people try to break things. That's just what we do. We try to break things.
You're one of those people, Rob. I can tell the way you're talking about it, that you've tried to pressure test some systems in your day.
I mean, it's important to pressure test, but the challenge for AI is it can go off the rails. And when you put something out there for anyone to pressure test in any way they see fit, there are a lot of people who just get bored and they have a lot of time on their hands and they want to see what kind of fun results they can get. When you are instead using this to simply provide analysis and feedback on a discrete interaction, you can get some really good stuff to an agent that allows them to kind of self coach and understand, even at an aggregate level. Okay, well, I'm really struggling with this particular aspect of call handling before my supervisor has even had a coaching session with me. And I can get specific feedback on a particular interaction and how I handled it. And that's not something that call center agents have historically been used to. They get feedback for sure, but it's usually on, just a handful of calls every month. And often if you ask them, they'll say, well, that was one of my bad calls. Most of my calls are really good, but that was one of my bad ones. Why do you always pick the bad ones? This allows us to really canvas all of the calls and understand trends. What really are, okay, if it just happened one call, then we can probably ignore that. But what are the things that are happening a lot that we can correct and really turn someone into a stronger performer?
This self-coaching piece that you're talking about, I think that is beautiful in the way that people don't like to be criticized, right? Like, I have a sales coach myself that I've had for years, right? And when we want to review calls, it's like, ugh, like just like you said, you're already making excuses. Oh, this wasn't a very good one, but this is what I got to look at, right? In terms of the curbside coaching and looking at what was said, how you said it, that kind of thing, question asking, all of that. And yeah, it always sucks. Like, I don't care who you are. No one really wants to be shown what they did wrong in front of their boss, right? And so this idea that, yeah, you just like getting feedback, suggestions, or whatever, trends or, patterns that are being noticed are then communicated. What does that look like? If I was the agent, how is that kind of communicated? Are they just like, you get an email, you got to log into the platform? What does it look like, Rob?
Yeah, so today you've got to log into the platform, but long term, I think a daily email is actually where we're headed. I think that's easier on everyone to just kind of
Or
check
Slack,
your email.
Slack
Or,
integration,
yeah,
Rob. There you
sure.
go. Yeah, yeah.
Not everyone uses Slack.
No,
There
but
are some crazy people that
options.
use Teams.
Yeah,
I get
Teams
it.
is
I
fine.
use both. But being able to just have an idea of one of the things that we show too is areas of improvement so that we can reinforce like what you're doing well. It's not only about, hey, you're stinking at overcoming objections, Anders, you need to work on that. No, we'll show you, hey, you're really improving at overcoming objections. Keep up the good work, kind of thing. And that really is one of the things that helps. The reality is the way we have coached people in general doesn't work because we don't follow up enough. So in a call center setting in particular, I may come to you, Anders, maybe you're my agent, and we have a coaching session and we talk about, let's say, overcoming objections, right? Then I don't touch base with you for a week to find out how you're doing on that particular thing. And after a day or two, you kind of slide back into old habits. And then next week when we talk, oh, it's still a problem. This ability to kind of see where you are on a regular basis really allows the agent to keep front of mind what they're working on, to allow them to focus on that throughout the day. It's that constant reminder of, oh yeah, this is what I'm working on. so that it becomes a habit, as opposed to what has
Yeah.
happened often in the past, where you go, well, I coach this agent on this one thing like over and over and over, and I never see any change. And it's because they just lose focus on
Yeah. So that idea that it's kind of not in their face, but it is, in front of them, and a constant reminder on what they're trying to work on. And I suppose, the platform is also listening to see if if there is improvement, like this has been
it. Yeah.
addressed. Let's watch for that. I do like that areas of improvement idea too, of like, look how far you've come, right? Like
Yeah.
Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he talks about always measure backwards, right? It's not like where are you coming up short,
Yeah.
but it's like look how far we've come. And that's good for a culture. That's good for, just making people feel valued, right? So is there, is there a cultural spin-off benefit of having this, not just having better customer service, but like, in terms of how the teams feel about it?
Yeah, I think there is, assuming that you have the right culture in place to begin with. So,
Look, I'll just call that out because I'm sure it was going to be picked up. Somehow my iPad thought I was asking SIRI a question, and not
Mhm.
Rob Dwyer. So I'm going to just turn this off. This is what makes it exciting, right? Like live
Yeah.
recording. But even I thought the noise canceling wouldn't pick it up. So but I thought I'd just call it out. Rob, I apologize for interrupting. Let's go back to it. Let's talk about the culture piece there.
Yeah. I am a firm believer that no tool can create your culture or even change your culture. Your culture is created by your people, your leaders. Can it help if you've already got a strong culture that is encouraging, that is fostering of performance improvement in a positive way? Yes, absolutely. What I always hesitate to say is like, look, if you've got culture problems, no tool that you implement, certainly this is not going to fix those problems. In fact, it could exacerbate things. So I'm a big fan of fixing your culture first, if that is part of the challenge that you're facing. But in any organization that already has a performance mind, a strong culture, a positive reinforcement, hey, I want to get better every day type of culture, then yeah, we're a great fit for that.
Hmm. Hmm. Going back into AI, and you're using AI to analyze actual human agents' interactions. So we're kind of using it as a tool on the outside. I mean, we're going to be getting into the point where people are trying to get a hold of customer service, and it is AI for good, bad, or whatever. I'm not exactly sure. Here's another business idea for you, Rob. This is not a question. This is just like, I keep trying to find someone who'll do this. I want an AI that works for me, that solves my customer service issues, that will deal with the other AI or whatever. Like I need a go between API AI
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
that
I'll
you
have my
just get your problem
AI
solved.
talk to your
Yeah.
AI, and yeah.
Can you
Yeah,
tell someone to do something about that, Rob? That's all.
I think it's coming actually.
Okay.
But I think that is on the way, and that is really the agentic AI, or an AI agent. And when I say agent, I don't mean like a contact center agent, but really an AI that can do things on behalf of you and interact with the
Hmm.
world. That's happening on your computer, where there will be there are currently AIs that can actually drive your machine, and do things on your behalf. I do think, though, that in the world of customer service, yes, there are some good use cases for AI, just like there have always been good use cases for automation of different
Yeah.
sorts, to make it easy for low hanging fruit to be accomplished without having someone to get in the middle of it. But I am concerned that companies will try to implement AI in ways that are not really beneficial to customers, are not beneficial to the company themselves, and might create a really bad experience. And we've already seen some people kind of fall flat in the mud, face first, by doing that, by empowering an AI like chatbot to do
Yeah.
a little too much. And I think it's important that we recognize that at the end of the day, people want to connect with people. And
Amen. Yes.
I
Like,
want to I want to keep it there.
yeah, well, and I do too. But that's what I kind of wanted to get your opinion of where this is going, because I mean, here you are helping Happy Two's helping human agents, right, get
Mhm.
better.
Yeah.
And yet, when people want to, again, you said made the wrong, or made these decisions for the wrong reasons, probably one, just to save money, they go to
Yeah.
the AI agent or what have you. What do you see as the trend? Because, you're the future of your company is somewhat, part of
Yeah.
that, right? So,
Absolutely. I think the trend is that companies are experimenting and often finding that when it comes to customer facing AI applications, meaning just let me put this chatbot in charge of AI, that it's not quite there yet. That doesn't mean that it won't be
yeah.
very soon, potentially, but it's not quite there yet. And I do think there are some huge opportunities, though. We saw Klarna make this move. But here's the interesting thing about Klarna, they have a customer base that is global, that speaks over 20 different languages. Supporting that from a human perspective has always been a challenge because you
Mhm.
have to have enough people that speak these different languages to support people, or you have to use translators, and it just gets kind of messy. AI translates itself almost instantaneously. So I don't have to worry about the language piece necessarily the way I had to. I do think instantaneous translation of humans talking to humans is a really intriguing and kind of
Uh-huh.
the next thing for
Right.
customer service.
Yeah, that is interesting because of the leverage that you get from being able to use the same agents around the world.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's neat. Because we're talking about it's not quite there yet, right? Like whether it's the delay. I don't know if have you been called by a sales AI yet?
Not yet,
Okay,
but I
I've had
have.
two.
And how was
And
it?
so right away, it's funny, like they sound really good, right? Like they're just like, "Hi, my name is so and so," right? And I'm an AI sales agent. And, they call themselves out, which I think legally they probably have to in some way. Uh, then it asks a question, you answer, and then there's a little bit of a delay, which of course we know things will speed up and that'll be, but it's just a little bit different. And I was probably talking to it longer than I would have just because I was so curious, right? Like I'm like, oh, like,
Mhm.
well, okay, what if I say this and what will it happen here and what, and
You were
it's
trying to break things.
right. Like I wasn't pressure testing it. I swear, I was just curious. But the idea that it's taught the rubric of questions, to be able to qualify or whatever, right? And so I was just kind of, but then I also thought like, yeah, hanging up on that. Of course, you don't offend its feelings, right? So it's like you can get off of the call very quickly if you want. But it's just to know that that's out there. I just don't know how I feel about it. Like we're all kind of coming around to these, it's becoming more and more common and we're using it in daily life, and our people are adopting it quicker. I'm a big fan of what you said, like the human connection is what we're looking for. In fact, our company Engageify, it's .ai, and people have been listening to this will hear me say this before, but our AI stands for authentic interactions, right? Like
I
that's
love it.
that's the what I think we're missing, and as we go into the future, the companies who can be more human, I think will garner more, connection, more interest, more attention, But what's your take, Rob? What do you think? Where are we
Yeah,
going?
I think I think people will recognize the commoditization of customer service if it is just handled by AI. And to your point, I think people feel much more comfortable just hanging up or maybe getting rude. That is a challenge already today with actual people, but I do think that it's easier to deal with a real person. And there's some consideration of the fact that this is a real person. I also think, right, there are some ethical questions that we need to think about, not just in this particular aspect of AI, but AI as a whole and kind of how we deploy it. Are we taking away people's livelihoods by deploying AI in certain ways? And, you know, what are the ethics of that? What are we going to do to help those people who are being displaced?
Yeah. Yeah, it's unintended consequences rear their ugly heads, right? That's and sometimes we don't see that coming because it was
Yeah.
unintended, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I got one more question for you, and a little change of gears. I know that you judge the IACMI, I guess, Global Contact Center Awards, correct?
I have.
You
Yeah.
have in the
Hmm.
past.
Hmm.
So, I mean, take us like, how do you judge that? Like, what are the categories, or what is the context in which you are able to kind of be able to stack rank these
Yeah.
contact centers? Because that's a foreign, idea to me. So peel back
It's
the curtain a little bit for us.
yeah, you know what? I've done it just the one time and it was actually pretty eye-opening to me. The process is number one, you need to submit for it, right? And they kind of like you have to document a lot
Yeah.
about why you are deserving of X, Y, or Z. And so there are a lot of different categories, right? It might be best medium-sized contact center, of which there's a delineation, best small contact center, best large contact center, best contact center agent, best contact center supervisor, right? There are all these different categories that they have. But each one of those comes with really a grading rubric and all of this supporting documentation that comes with it. And so, what I will say is, I found during that experience that the companies that provided more supporting documentation gave you a lot more to work with, right?
Mm.
I
Yeah.
can better justify rating someone at a particular scale because I have support behind it versus a company that maybe didn't provide as much supporting documentation to kind of show their case as to why they deserve this. So a lot of it is just about um, the documentation piece. And I will tell you, a long time ago in my contact center career, I learned that if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And that was actually aimed at, whether or not I coached you on a particular subject or, right, we had a particular conversation about a topic. You need to document that as a supervisor. And that holds true in really any kind of business. But for the purposes of these awards, having that documentation really allowed you to kind of get into their organization and understand like how the center performed or how a particular individual performed or how a particular product performed within that center. So some of it is, I think one of the categories I did was just about the best new product, as far as a SaaS product that was being used in contact centers. And it was a really fascinating category to delve into because you're looking at these brand new, amazing technologies that people are using to solve real world problems. And that was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Before we end, I do want to ask one other thing. I was going to say, from seeing all of the interactions of all these agents, of all these companies, right? And is there any tip or any theme idea that comes to mind for you that you would want to see being done out there more, right? Like if there was a salesperson listening, if there was, just someone who's going to have a better interaction with someone, a customer success, manager or something like that. What do you think you could share with us as a takeaway?
I think one of the biggest things that I can share with you is to remember at the beginning of every interaction that this is fresh. And the person that you're talking to isn't the 20th person that you've talked to about this exact subject today. It's the first time they've talked with you about this subject, and approaching everything in a way that this is fresh. And I understand that you're coming in with a need and you don't know all the things that I know, and I'm here to help you with those things, can change the way that that conversation goes. And you can hear it right at the beginning of a conversation, particularly a voice call. It starts with the greeting. So if you listen to how people answer the phone, particularly at a company, when they're saying, "Thank you for calling so-and-so," on every single phone call, it becomes this thing that's not even a greeting anymore if they're not really thinking and being mindful about it. It just becomes this jumble of words that they string together really, really quickly. And sometimes if you actually listen to it, it doesn't even sound like what they're supposed to be saying, because it just "Thank you for calling,"
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so just taking that moment to approach each interaction in a mindful way that's fresh and that I want to help this person, that can really change the entire way you actually interact with people on every single call or chat or what have you.
Mindfulness in your interactions. It's funny you say that, because right when we first started talking, you have a pace, you have a presence to you, Rob, that is kind of like, people kind of, I don't know, you have
I'm
a
from the
way.
Midwest, man. I'm like
I
due
guess so.
south of you.
I know,
It's
I know, but you do have, like, if people are listening to your voice, it's like, it's almost hypnotic. So there is a mindfulness to you. And it really makes me think of what actors would call illusion of the first time, right? An actor rehearses and rehearses, and yet every time they perform, that's the first time that audience is seeing that piece. And
yeah.
so it has to be as fresh as, seeing it the first time. So same thing happens when engineers are demoing, a software product at a trade show, and they've been having saying the same things all day long. Yeah. So mindfulness in the interaction. That's a beautiful place to end, I think. Rob, tell us, how can people reach out if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, you can always find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Rob Dwyer. You can find us at happitu.com, happy2.com. And you can always also, if you just want to go straight to email, you can email me at dwyer@happy2.com.
Cool. And check out the Next in Queue podcast too. That's another
For
place.
sure. All the places that you listen or watch podcasts.
Awesome. Hey, Rob, it's so great to have you. I feel like we should do this again sometime. I felt it was fun to chat with you, and yeah, thanks again for being here.
I appreciate it, Anders.
Excellent. And to all of our listeners who are tuning in once again, thanks for tuning in, and you know what to do. Until next time, stay engaged. Thank you so much for listening to Engaging Personalities. If you believe this world needs more engagement, and you're an industry leader, or you have an interesting take on rehumanizing business, go to go.engagify.ai/podcast-guest to apply and come on the show. If you got something out of this interview, do you mind sharing it on your social media? Just grab a quick screenshot with your phone and text it to a friend, or post it on the socials. If you know someone that would be a great guest, tag them on social media to let them know about the show. Include the hashtag Engaging Personalities. I love seeing your posts and guest suggestions. We are regularly putting out new episodes and content. To make sure you don't miss any episode, go ahead and subscribe. Your thumbs up, ratings, and reviews go a long way to help promote the show and mean a lot to me and my team. Want to know more? Go to our website, engageify.ai, or follow me on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening, and stay engaged.